In recent years, Saint Lucia has been adversely impacted by the changing state of the global economy, from the COVID-19 pandemic to now concurrent wars in various regions and changes in U.S. trade policy. Unfortunately, small developing states typically have little means to combat imported inflation and consequent increases in the cost of living. In an exclusive interview with Choice News, Economist Richard Peterkin spoke to the options that Saint Lucia's and Caribbean governments have to manage the cost of living.
Governments throughout the region do not have a lot of weapons to offset the increase in prices, particularly food. They don't. They can reduce VAT and taxes, but imported inflation, they have no control over.
Peterkin hopes to see more collaboration between the private sector and the government, where a collaborative approach is taken to managing inflation instead of subsidization and price controls.
They can put pressure on retailers, try to get an MOU as Barbados did, so that in fact the people who are selling the foodstuffs, rather than price controls, which I don't think work either. And neither, we have subsidies on a lot of foodstuffs. We have subsidies in kerosene and other things like that. We really need to get to the point where governments don't have to subsidize and they don't have to run those departments. They can control rather than subsidize.
He looks forward to a future where the government is able to persuade retailers to change their pricing methods when inflation spikes.
Work with the private sector to make sure that there's no gouging. The best that can happen is that you have competition. And that will mean that even though the cost is imported inflation is coming in, that at least the different retailers, because they want demand, they will in fact try to keep their price as low as possible.
Peterkin recalled a point in time when one of his colleagues, Evaristus Jamari, ran an experiment to determine the viability of a pass-through fuel pricing mechanism.
I always remember talking to my good friend Evaristus many years ago about this flow-through mechanism and the pricing, and I pointed out to him, there is no control over reducing the price. And so, out of curiosity, he reduced his price one day. And boy, the rest of the petroleum dealers dumped on him. So much so that he had to go back and it's like a cartel. So there's sometimes it's a cartel and other times, there is gouging in it, there are, because you have dishonest retailers, just like you have corrupt politicians and corrupt private sector people.
He opined that today's economic situation calls for politicians' sincere regard for the impact of the cost of living on everyday people. Listing, for example, the success of Donald Trump's campaign appeal to the affordability of groceries as a way of demonstrating how much of a pressing political issue cost of living is.
And so the government doesn't have a lot of weapons. What they have done is a good step in removing as much as they can. There is more that they can do. It takes a while to filter through until you actually notice the prices going down. But what you forget is while the price is going down, the inflation prices, to me right now, if I was in a political party, I would be talking, either side, the main issues, crime, the cost of living, and, basically the inefficiency of departments and the private sector to make life easier and make our lifestyles better.
For Choice News Now, I am Cianna Dalsan.